Level 1. The Galley Slave. You are chained to a bench. The wood underneath you is glassy smooth. Someone's grip wore it that way over years before yours ever touched it. That man is gone now. Sold, maybe. Or dead. Nobody explains which. The oar is heavier than anything you have ever held. You pull it 80, sometimes 100 days a year. The rest of the time, you are still not free. You are rented out, to quarries, to building sites, to anyone who needs a body that cannot refuse. Food is bread, water, little else. You sleep where you row. When the man beside you dies mid-voyage, no one moves him right away. There is a schedule for the ship. There is no schedule for grief. You did not choose this life. Historian Robert Davis has estimated that Corsairs from Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli enslaved over 1 million Europeans between 1530 and 1780, though other historians have challenged how precisely that number can really be known across 2.5 centuries. Either way, you are one name inside it. You are 11 years old when a Saleh ship takes you. Your name is Thomas Pellow. 23 years will pass before you see England again. At the auction block, a buyer checks your teeth, grips your forearm. In every way that matters here, you are livestock now. Skilled men are sorted for the cities, carpenters, smiths, anyone with a trade a household can use. Men with no trade go to the quarry or the oar, and mostly, they stay there. This is the bottom rung of something far larger than a ship. Not a crew, an economic system, slaves at the base, and at the summit, a sultan who has never once seen this bench, this oar, or you. You will not meet him. You may never hear his name spoken correctly. But not every captive stays at the oar. Some end up somewhere far stranger, locked up on land instead. Level 2. The Bagnio Captive. Night falls, and you are moved off the worksite into stone. 15-16 men crowded into one cell. No beds, just the floor and each other's breathing in the dark. It should feel like the bottom. It almost is. But someone, at some point, built a chapel here. A room the size of a closet, a candle stub burning low, a captive priest murmuring a mass none of you have heard properly in years. There are shops inside this prison too, taverns even, run by the same men locked inside it. By day, you are hired out, hauling stone, mixing mortar, whatever the town needs built. By night, you return to this, a captive society, assembled inside captivity itself. Women are held differently. Those from wealthy families get better conditions, not mercy, but math. A healthy captive brings a higher ransom. Many are still exploited regardless. Some are sold as concubines. Your value here has almost nothing to do with kindness, and everything to do with what you're worth to someone richer than you. There is a whole economy built under this system. Religious orders, Trinitarians, Mercedarians, exist to buy people like you back. Occasionally, a monk trades himself for a stranger he has never met. It may be the only truly selfless transaction in this entire machine. But ransom takes money. Your family may not have it. There is another way out of this cell. It costs nothing in coin. It costs something else. There was exactly one way out of this cell that didn't involve a ransom payment, and it required becoming the very thing that had captured you. Level 3. The Free Corsair Sailor. A judge, a Qadi, asks you questions in a language you are only beginning to understand. You answer the way you were coached to answer. Your chains come off before he finishes speaking. You are not free, not in any way you once understood freedom, but you are no longer at the oar. Conversion is the door most captives never find. For you, it opened. You work the rigging now, rope and canvas instead of a bench that owns your spine. You climb. You no longer only pull. There is a full share of plunder waiting for you now. The same cut as any freeborn sailor standing beside you. Nobody says the next part out loud, but you feel it anyway. A convert is not fully trusted. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The men around you were born into this world. You arrived in irons. Changing your clothes does not close that gap. So when the boarding call comes, you go first. You are over the enemy's rail before anyone finishes shouting the order. Not for glory, for proof. This is how loyalty gets measured here. Not in what you say, in whether your feet moved before you decided to move them. You go home with your share of the prize. You go home still half a stranger. Loyalty wasn't proven with words here. It was proven the first time you had to board an enemy ship yourself. Level 4. The Janissary border. You are not a sailor. You are a soldier who happens to fight on water. Ottoman training built you for exactly one job. Cross onto an enemy deck and take it. The moment you land, the ship stops belonging to its old crew. Blades first. Questions later, if there is a later. There is a hierarchy even in the chaos. You and the other boarders divide the seized silver among yourselves, before the sailors, before the officers, before anyone else gets a share. It is not written down as a reward. It is simply how it has always been done. Records suggest this internal split was standard practice, though exact ratios varied by regency and campaign. You do not think much, yet, about politics. You think about the next deck, the next blade, the next division of coin. But the men beside you, this same body of Janissaries, are more than muscle. They are a block, a vote, a body that, years from now, decides who is allowed to rule this entire regency and who is quietly removed from it. You do not know that yet. You are simply good at your job, and your job is violence with a purpose. These are the same men who, years later, would decide who got to rule and who got to die. Level 5. The Renegade. A year ago, you were in irons, captured off a Christian ship, dragged into Algiers like cargo. Today, you kneel before a Qadi. The chains are still being unlocked from your wrists as you repeat words in a language you barely speak. You are Yan Yanzun. History will remember you as Murat Reis. Your seamanship, Atlantic-trained, hardened on privateering runs no local captain ever sailed, is worth more here than your birth ever was. Renegades like you climb faster than men born into this world, because you bring skills the system cannot train quickly enough on its own. On some 18th century ship rosters, close to half the captains recorded are European converts, not native-born Muslims. Some ship rosters suggest this ratio, though the sample is uneven across regencies and decades. Still, you are watched. Trusted with a ship before you are ever fully trusted with a table. Then, in 1619, 1 year after your own capture, 14 pirate captains in the port of Saleh meet to vote. They elect you their president. A man who was rowing in chains 12 months earlier now heads an independent pirate republic that answers to no sultan, no king, no one at all. Accounts of the Saleh Republic describe this election consistently, though the precise vote count comes from popular history rather than a single archival record. The chain that dragged you here in 1618 had, 1 year later, put 14 votes in your favor. Level 6. The Reis. You command a ship now, not a crew position, the ship. Investors back home in Algiers put up the money to build and arm it. You answer to them the way a business answers to shareholders, and they expect a return. In your cabin, the ledger is always open. Quartermaster's share, gunner's share, carpenter's share. The pasha's cut, counted out in coin on the table before anyone eats. Even the men chained to your own oars get a small cut of what you bring home. It is not kindness. On Christian galleys of the same century, a rowing slave gets nothing. Here, he gets a fraction, small but real, because a man who is paid, even slightly, rows harder than a man who is only beaten. You have the largest personal share aboard, short of what goes upward to the ruler. You also carry the largest personal risk. One bad voyage, one captured ship, one dead crew, and your career ends with it. There is no severance here. There is only the next prize, or the last one. Even the men chained to his own oars got a cut of what he brought home. It wasn't kindness. It was incentive. Level 7. The Fleet Admiral. Command enough ships, and you are no longer just a captain. You are a Reis al-Bahr, an admiral coordinating a convoy of Reis, each one proud, each one used to being the only authority on his own deck. Holding a convoy together is its own kind of war. You negotiate constantly, with the captains under you, who guard their independence fiercely, and with the ruling council above you, who expect their share of whatever the fleet brings home. A successful raid makes your name known across the Regency. That should feel like safety. It is closer to the opposite. Success here draws attention, and attention, in this system, is never only admiration. It is also suspicion. The Council does not simply celebrate a rising admiral. It studies him, wonders what he might do with that many ships, that much loyalty, that much silver, if he ever decided he no longer needed permission. Command this many ships, and you stop being just a sailor. You start being someone the ruling council has to watch. Level 8. The Divan Elite. You have made it into the room where rulers are made. The Divan, senior Janissary officers and captains, the same men who once boarded enemy ships shoulder to shoulder, now deciding who sits on the Regency's throne. This body elects the day. This body can also remove him. Every prize brought into port pays roughly 10% straight to the ruling pasha, off the top, before anything else is divided. It functions like a tax, a legal toll levied by the state on its own core industry, piracy itself. You sit in a room that gives power and takes it away with equal ease. You have watched men rise here in a season and vanish just as fast. You are careful now about which conversations you're seen having, and with whom. Power in this room is never fully yours. It is on loan, from the same people who can recall it. They put men on the throne. They also, when it suited them, took men off it, permanently. Level 9. The Day. Guards stand outside your door. You used to find that reassuring. You do not anymore. You rule the Regency now. Every prize brought into port pays you its 10th. Foreign envoys address you as a head of state. On paper, there is no higher local authority than the one you now hold. But the same body that elected you, the Janissary and captain elite of the Divan, can just as easily decide your time is finished. Records suggest a recurring pattern across the Regencies. Days deposed, or worse, within months of taking power, by the very men who put them there. Consider the ceiling this system can produce when it goes the other way. Hayreddin Barbarossa rose from ordinary Corsair to Bey in 1519, then to Capudan Pasha, Grand Admiral of the entire Ottoman navy, by 1533. The ladder in this empire genuinely reaches Constantinople. But that is the exception, not the rule. For most who reach this office, the throne is not the safest room in the regency. It is the most exposed one. There was one office in this empire even more dangerous than the oar. It was this one. Level 10. The Ottoman Sultan. Algiers Harbor, 1815. An American frigate sits at anchor. Commodore Stephen Decatur has already defeated 2 Algerian warships and taken hundreds of prisoners. Dey Omar has no leverage left. He signs a treaty that afternoon, one ending the future payment of tribute and ransom after nearly 3 centuries of the practice. Above every regency, every day, every captain and convert and chained oarsman sits the Ottoman Sultan in Constantinople, the nominal owner of this entire system. He holds ultimate sovereignty, on paper. In practice, he governs almost none of it. The regencies operate their own fleets, keep their own revenue, elect and depose their own rulers, and rarely wait for permission from a court thousands of miles away. The empire survived 3 centuries of assassinating its own rulers from within. It did not end that way. It ended in a single afternoon on the deck of a foreign ship with a signature. The oarsman at the bottom never learns what happens at the top of this system. He only knows the bench, the ration, the years. But the day at the top, the one strangled in his own palace months after his crowning, was, in his own way, just as chained. One man was consumed at the oar, the other was consumed on the throne. Between them sat a sultan who owned it all and controlled almost none of it. Everyone in this machine was a prisoner of something. Only the lock was different. A boy stands on a wooden platform in Meknes. He is 11 years old. A buyer checks his teeth, grips his forearm the way you'd check a horse before buying it. His name is Thomas Pellow. He will not see England again for 23 years. This is the empire that once forced a young United States to build its first real navy, the one still sung about in the Marine Corps hymn, "To the Shores of Tripoli." Its ruler, on paper, never set foot in it. The man who actually ran it could be strangled by his own guards before his first year was out. By the end, you'll understand why the most dangerous seat in this system wasn't the oar. It was the throne. The cycle